The competitive 40K network presents Art of War.
Art of War.
Strategy and tactics. Discussions with the best players on the planet. Now your host, Nick Nanavati.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Art of War 40K podcast. I'm your host, Nick Nanavati, and this week we are joined by a very special guest, Liam VSL from Belgium. Liam, how are you doing?
Good, and you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. Liam, you've just come off of an undefeated run at the Home Nations team tournament over in England, and you were not only undefeated in this team event, but you were actually the highest point scorer of the entire event with an army that I don't think anybody saw coming. You were running Harlequins. That's right. Not Ynnari, not Aspect Host, not any of those big bads that you're expecting, but rather Harlequins. An army that largely is not getting any attention at all competitively. And we're here to unpack that. We're going to figure out exactly the list you designed, how it works, how it operates. And then in part two of this two-part episode, we're going to go game by game through Home Nations and really break down your tactical minutia for how it all happened on the table. Are you excited for this?
Yeah. Let's go.
Let's go. I'm super excited for this, Liam. I love Harlequins. I love seeing your work. And one thing I admire about you as a player is that you're always willing to push the boundaries of the meta, play your own style of Warhammer, and not only do that, which I think is something a lot of players aspire to, but you do it so successfully against some of the best players in the world. And that is truly incredible. So we're here to unpack it. All right, let's just jump right in, Liam. You've been playing Team Warhammer for a long time. And you just came off of a great finish with Team Belgium at the Euro Trash Cup, ETC, where you played Emperor's Children. So can you, for the life of me, explain why you would go from a really cool, awesome army like Emperor's Children, where you're doing super well, again, in your own style with the Demonettes and stuff we had you on a few months ago, and you're just switching up to Harlequins? What is that idea?
I mean, the main thing is like, we are playing team, right? So sometimes you have to make concession with your teammate, like, because at ETC, one of our army didn't work. Like, we were playing Mono Demon and it didn't work like we wanted to. So that player wanted to switch to Shadow Legion with the same player has no codex anymore, and he wanted to play Emperor Children. And I tested Emperor Children for the team. I knew how good it was, and I knew that it would fit the style of that player. So I say, let's go take Emperor Children. And me, I had the look on Harlequin for a long time, and it was the occasion to give them a shot.
So in a team tournament like this, obviously accuracy with your matrix is very critical. You know, being able to call win a win and actually get it, call loss a loss, and be honest about it. All that stuff is super important. Did you find that with Harlequins you were able to kind of accurately matrix? Do you have a lot of reps and stuff with it?
Eldritch book come out, and I find a lot of weakness about Harlequin, but I was aware of them, and I was also aware of what they were capable of doing. So yeah, on the matrix, I knew which matchup I wanted to and which matchup I wanted to avoid, which is always really strong data. And because I play a lot, obviously I have the experience from the table to back up the feeling for the matrix.
Awesome. All right. So with respect to your team and kind of your team composition, I'm sure a lot of your team was maybe uncertain about Harlequins, because I remember you were telling me that when you first started your Harlequin adventure, you lost a lot of games. It wasn't going super well. What was your progression as a Harlequin player, really refining the list, figuring out what worked and what didn't work? And then how did you convince your team that this is actually worth taking?
So basically what happened is I'm basically a Harlequin player. So when the new Eldritch book come out, I did try a lot the the Harlequin detachment, sorry. But I was like, my first couple of games, I struggled a lot. I lost quite a few games. I think all about the Harlequin detachment is to find the right balance of playing Harlequin with Eldar, because you cannot really play mono Harlequin. You have to take a bit of Eldar inside your army. And I was really looking to find that balance. So I had a bunch of games where I was trying to find the good balance. And I think the declic just happened before ETC, when I looked at one of not a really well-regarded unit in my opinion, but I look at the Warlock Conclave army unit. For some of me and my friend, we were trying to do like a Guardian Battle list, and we saw like those big unit of Warlock Conclave with Farseer or Eldrad, and it was super good. And when like I put that together with Harlequin, it started to look like a strong choice for my team. So, like I told for ETC, I was playing Emperor Children, so I switched after to Emperor Children, and then when like I told my teammate needed to go with Emperor Children, I went back to Harlequin and test that with Warlock Conclave inside. And I think it was one of the key components to make Harlequin work is have those Conclave units we will talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So Eldrad and the Warlocks, that's one of my favorite units, like in Eldar, just the Conclave and its doings. But the Harlequin detachment doesn't really support the Eldar Conclave, Warlock Conclave at all. What made you like it in the context of Harlequins?
I mean, it's the opposite, right? It's the Conclave that support the Harlequin, kind of. So it's two things. First, with Harlequin, I was kind of struggling to kill stuff, like big stuff, without committing my whole army into it, because the output was a bit unreliable. And the Farseer and Eldrad help a lot with that, because the +1 to hit and +1 a wound. And the second part is the Harlequin detachment has basically kind of no detachment rules, but only have like really strong stratagem. So I needed to CP to make them work. And then on the other hand, is the Warlock is just a really solid data sheet because it has so good outputs that were helping me in the matchup where I was kind of getting rushed to have like the output to deal with the opponent.
Right. So basically, one of the key problems that Eldar as a faction encounters is that it's actually kind of vulnerable to stat checks. Your opponent might be able to blitz you, and while your fire dragons kill like one tank or two tanks, if there's too many in your face or too many stats in your face, you can't kill it all. And then the Conclave with +1 to wound from Eldrad really helped you with that. Walk me through kind of the Conclave stats and how it helps with this, if you could.
So basically, Conclave has each Warlock in a Conclave has a Flamer gun that is not really a Flamer, it's a psychic attack that is base strength 5 AP 1/1 damage, a Flamer shot with D6 shots, doesn't ignore cover, but they have a rules that say that for each Psyker model within 6 inches of them, they can +1 to their number of shots and +1 to their strength, up to +2 each. So they basically, because they are always like kind in a little package of Psyker, they always have like each of them has a D6 +2 strength 7 AP 1/1 damage. So basically, for a four-man Conclave, it's 4d6 +8 Flamer shots. That's a lot of output actually, because most of the time you will do like, I think on average it's 22 shots of strength 7 that can be +1 a wound, or that can just be strength 7 and wounding most thing on 3 or tank on 5. And it's quite a lot of shots. So they shred like 3 up save, but they are even better in like 5 up save, 4 up involve. That is really common in team because you have like a bunch of army that are low toughness, low armor safe. They also have like the spear that is 1 shot damage 3. That's perfect. All the 3 wound body. It's no EP, but it's high strength. So you will often say, okay, here is like 2 or 3 up save. If you fail any of them, it's one guy that is dead directly. And they also have like a semi-durable body, because they have, when they are led by a Farseer, which they are in my list, they are -1 to be wound, and they are 2 wound with a 4 up involve. So they are not like easy to kill. Like they are not resilient, but they ask a bit of resource to die. So that's like the profile.
Interesting. Okay, I'm super curious to see how it all comes together, and I feel like I'm missing the context of your actual army list here. Liam, could you walk me through line by line what the army list you took to Home Nations was?
Yes, sure. So the army list is divided in 2 parts, like I told, the Harlequin part and the Eldari part. So in the Harlequin, I have a Shadowseer with 11 men of player. I have 3 Troupe Master with 3 5-man player in 3 Star Weaver. And then I have the Solitaire. And then for the Eldari part, I have 2 Warlock Conclave with 1 Farseer for +1 a hit and Eldrad for the CP and +1 a wound. I have 10 Storm Guardians, sticky objective, etc. 3 units of Reaper for the long range shooting. And then 5 Rangers and 2 units of solo Warlock Skyrunner for kind of my action monkey unit. And I think that's basically it.
All right. So on the offset, this looks like a pretty normal Harlequin army, although you're missing some Eldar staples, which really piques my interest. Like there are no fire dragons. And I know a lot of people kind of just think fire dragons are an auto include because of how they murder tanks. How do you handle tough to kill targets without them?
So basically the idea was, I kind of dislike the dragon because they were not really like, they're only good at killing like tank without involve, where with my army, I'm a lot better at like focusing a piece and killing it because I have the Harlequin. They all have Meltagun that are decent, but they also have Death Wound in melee. So really I can like focus big piece with, putting like one or the two buff from the Farseer to help me killing it. And so I can really, I'm facing like a bunch of tanks. My army is a bit weaker against it, but we were playing teams, so I could just avoid those army. And by those army, I mainly mean Chaos Knight. But
yeah, the teams
really,
of course lets you pick your matchups and stuff. But
exactly.
So you were using the Farseer for +1 to hit and Eldrad for +1 to wound against a specific target unit to make your Harlequins hit much harder, and your Flamer Warlocks and your Dark Reapers, all of that also hits a lot harder into key targets. Yeah. And then because it's not like one instance of damage, which can get spiked away by someone passing too many vulnerables, like say Fire Dragons can, your damage is a lot more consistent. Like it's just chipping you away over time. That makes a lot of sense. When I look at your army, it's so fragile. Like at least on the offset, right? Like it's 3-star Weavers full of Harlequins. None of that is particularly durable. Some Storm Guardians, some Warlocks with, just 2 wounds each, Dark Reapers in the back. How do you like play this army strategically? Like what's your approach to Warhammer with it?
So basically, Harlequin have 2 really big game where the player have like the army in the DZ and there is only like couple of skirmish units in the middle, where I will be able to pick those units kind of for free with the Star Weaver, go back inside it at the end of the fight phase roll. So I will be able to go out with a Troupe unit, kill like a 5-man scout or something between like grenade, a bit of shooting, and maybe help from the indirect of the Reaper, then the melee, and then make sure I kill them and go back, and I will pick up stuff for free. Then in the grind of the game, I will become a bit quicker. And in late game, I will, if I manage to have like a grindy game where I manage to, lose quite a bit of resource, but exchange those for maybe the resource of my opponent, focusing on killing and let him score a bit more. I will come back really strong in the late game because I will have like a couple of units alive, but my unit alive will be so hard to catch because I will have reactive move back into transport, all those Eldar trickery that I will apply and that I can use to the best with Harlequin. So that was a bit my general game plan. And like I basically were playing around 2 of the core stratagem of the Harlequin, which were revive character. So I have a lot of like Troupe Master that have a good output, Solitaire. So I will be able during mid-game maybe to activate and maybe lose them and then revive those characters to become annoying in the late game. And then obviously the stronger stratagem in the detachment is the React Move 6, which allow me, when they come with 9, which allow me basically to stage well and then in late game to be uncatchable.
Very nice. So basically early game you skirmish super well because you have reactive moves and you go into and out of your transport, so you can basically attack them without getting retaliated upon effectively. And then late game, when resources are kind of depleted and activations matter a lot more on an individual level, that's when things like your reactive move really kick into gear and you're basically running away with the end game because you can't be caught at all, which is a really wonderful approach to it. Now, you mentioned your mid-game gets kind of weaker, and that's like one of the weaknesses to list. Very rarely do I hear people kind of break it down. I have a strong early game, a weak mid-game, and a strong late game. I don't think I've ever had that description of an army before. What makes that the general cadence? And then, like, how do you deal with it?
So basically, what I mean is that my army has like a good damage output, but I really need to commit everything to do stuff, to kill stuff. So in the mid game, when my opponent will go on every objective, we will fight back and forth. If I really want to kill stuff, I have to make choice of giving up on points generally. So in the mid game, generally, if I want to win the game, I have to give up a lot of points. Maybe let my opponent score like a 15 or stuff like that, because I want to focus the killing to get in that scenario where we are in mid game, we exchange a bunch of resources, and I'm up by a couple of things. And because my army doesn't have crazy damage output, I really will use every single shot in my army, every single melee attack, etc. So I will not have time to do action, not have time maybe to contest an objective with a lot of OC with 10 cultists behind a wall or stuff like that. So generally in the mid game, I will give up quite a few points. But like I told, in early game, I will get some point, and in late game, get the point as well. And generally, that means that I manage to scratch all the point I need.
Right. I like it. So how much of your game plan early game is going into and out of your transports with the Star Weaver rule? Is that a big part of it, like fight and fading, basically?
Yeah, basically, the early game is exactly striding fading a bit. It's also try to gather as many secondary points as possible early. So I will not hesitate, because I have Eldrad, and I have all those scoring pieces in form of the 2 Warlock and the 5-man Ranger, to try to score as many secondary as I can early, so that during turn 2, 3, 4, like 3, 4, probably I will not have to do too many secondary. At the same time, I want to kill my opponent. But yeah, it's like using the boat and getting an advantage in secondary, which is really important in my early game.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about the secondary flow a little bit later in the episode, but that makes a lot of sense. Basically, try to get a huge advantage early with like immense speed, aggro pressure, better control over early game skirmishing, and then keep up for it in the end. Does that make it difficult to predict your scores from a team perspective? I mean, the fact that you're winning and then you're losing and then you're winning again, is that difficult to kind of account for?
I think it's not that easy, but luckily I played a lot of games, so I know the feeling of when I'm losing or winning outside of looking at my points. But yeah, for a coach, that if my coach would not know me and not ask me directly, like maybe if I'm good or not, and only look to my scoreboard, sometimes he could see that I think I'm losing, but I'm actually winning. Like
Right.
sometimes that could happen, indeed.
Did that trip your team up at all? Because I know coaching and being accurate for other people's reasons, like if you're going down, Liam, someone else probably needs to send a push. How do you communicate that internally with your coaches?
Generally, they used to me, so like they know that when I'm saying it's not going well, it's not going well. Like generally, I'm either in a good spot and I'm saying it. Like I really quickly feel when I'm win big or not, and I will tell them. But
Right.
I will not, if I say it's bad, they will know it's bad, and sometime I will manage to recover. But generally, when that happens, like they know. I told them.
Yeah,
But
that's just good communication stuff. And also, like, your team knows you, and that's a big part of it too. Do you think that that's just like reps on reps on reps? Meaning, like, if someone's trying to pick up your army, the cadence is difficult to grasp, but once you played it a ton, it becomes easier, of course.
yeah, I think yeah, I have the chance of playing a lot of 40k, so I think most of my builds are generally maybe a bit less common and need a few more practice game than others. Army maybe to get used to, but yeah, that's how I play generally.
Very nice. Can you explain to me what like a normal deployment for this list looks like?
So generally, I have, so the first part is I have only one infiltration unit, so the ranger. So those rangers have 2 roles. Either they will score me some early points, like area deny. It's my key unit for doing area deny, or maybe deny an aggression from a flank, from like the opposite of my expansion objectives, like deny the expansion objective of my opponent, or they will like go in my backfield and screen my backfield against a P-Downy army.
Mm-hmm.
I have my 2 Warlock Skyrunner that will have their job is to go in the area of the board where there is a lot of objective to do. So they will go generally in the corner outside of my DZ to either do, like sabotage, recover asset, containment,
yeah.
all of those. And also while screening my backline. The Reaper will generally be positioned all together on the side where I have good firing lane, where I can control them, especially if I can have like line of sight on the expansion objective of my opponent. It's a bit the best spot. And then I will have like generally my big blob of Harlequin in the middle, try to go in the central ruin and be like, the force my opponent to either choose to come at me, and then I can either react move, or even like stay there and tank it, because I can become -1 to it in combat with the Harlequin Troupe rules, and I'm hazardous, so it's not free to hit me. And I will have like the boat running around on the side. So generally, I will have like maybe one boat on my expansion objective, one boat on my weaker side, and one boat in the middle. Try to go around, like go where the game need me to go. And I will have the 10 Storm Guardians starting on my home objective, stick it, and then run idly on the side of the expansion of my opponent to maybe on turn 3 deny it for one turn with 20 OC. And like that's a bit how and then the Warlock will be generally in the center of my dispositive to help me kill what's in front of me easily.
If you are listening to this, it probably means you play Warhammer 40k. And if you're playing Warhammer, you know you need a lot of dice. Baron of Dice is where we get our dice from. They produce amazing different kinds of dice. We just recently got all kinds of different faction dice shipped to us, which we use on our stream games. But not only do they look really cool, but they're highly customizable. You can get different symbols, corners that are square, corners that are round, different shapes and sizes, different sided dice. It's all the rage. And they're customizable in color and design as well. They are so cool looking. Not only that, but they feel great to roll in your hands. I've never held dice that roll and feel this good. Not only that, but they are scientifically perfectly balanced. There are tons of case studies on people rolling thousands of dice and recording all the results that they get. And sometimes you might get a die that rolls just a few too many ones. We've all had to throw it out before. These dice are not like that. They are perfectly balanced to a T, thousands of rolls, perfect distribution. If you want to take your Warhammer game seriously and make sure the dice are not screwing you over, get some Baron of Dice dice.
Very nice. Yeah. Okay. So kind of a spread out deployment. And I like that you started with your secondaries. The Skyrunners and the Rangers kind of help with that. And then you mentioned the Reapers all go in one general location and control a firing lane. That's very interesting to me. I would have intuitively assumed they kind of spread out and screen your backfield while also getting any angles they can. But it sounds like you use them more like a absolute domination over one angle type of thing. Do you find that your opponent can just like dodge that angle since they're all in the same spot, or is that part of the game plan?
I mean, WTC make that I'm really used to the firing lane, and I can really from one spot generally with 8-inch movement I can threat like 2 to 3 firing lane, because there is so few firing lane on WTC anyway that you only really need to be in one spot to threatening those, right? So obviously they will generally be the last one to be put as a drop-wise in deployment, so I can see where my opponent is deployed, because all the rest is really methodic and I don't really need to see my opponent deployment zone. So I will put like all my drop that will go behind wall, will always be placed like that, where I don't need to really look at my deployment, my opponent deployment. But then I will keep the Reaper for the last, and they will go in the best spot where I'm threatening the angle and maybe like punish a mistake. And also by not deploying them early, my opponent always need to assume that I can put Dark Reaper in a way that they can walk and see them, even if it's not true, because I'm not going to deploy them there.
I like it. Okay. So then your army kind of hits them in waves. You have like your early game skirmish secondary pieces, then your troops and the boats, then the Warlock conclaves, then the Dark Reapers, and it's like this 3-layered attack where every layer of your army can interact with your opponent. From a damage perspective, though, all of your stuff is kind of tethered to your Farseer and Eldrad, or at least that's, what it seems like. What if your opponent has more than one big, difficult target to kill? Imagine 20 possessed in your face, or 30 possessed in your face, or whatever, just like a big threat overload with lots of threats. How do you handle that?
So first, there is like the split obviously the two buff, like +1 hit, +1 wound on one side, and +1 hit on the other side. Sorry, and that helped me already a lot. The Harlequin have natively +1 wound in melee, so I can put +1 wound for my shooting, and then I will have +1 wound in melee for the Harlequin. And then it's a bunch of split firing and knowing trying to kill everything to the wound. I'm really trying to optimize my movement, my damage to the maximum. The thing I really try to avoid is overkilling. I rather let something alive on 1 or 2 possessed than killing 12 possessed, if you see what I mean.
I do see what you mean. That's just very counterintuitive to a lot of conventional wisdom in Warhammer. Usually you want to overcommit to make sure your resource is just gone rather than leave it alive and let it do things. You kind of have the opposite approach where you're playing a bit of a more dangerous game, trying to maximize efficiency and damage, potentially leaving risk for things to survive on a couple wounds. Why is that the approach? That's very counterintuitive.
I think that's my approach because I'm a team player and I'm always trying to play for high score, right? And also I'm kind of the scorer in my team. So I develop over the time a really, really risky, always playing on the edge and always control you're on the good part of the edge. So that's why I will always try to obviously put enough activation to kill it. But I want to have enough activation to also, I want to have some of those activation have other possibility to do if I overkill it, right? And so it's just my approach, I guess. I've been playing a lot like this, and it's through the reps and all of that, I start to know how much I need to commit to kill a certain thing, and it's really useful because then it allows me to push really efficiently to go for higher score.
Do you run the math on all of your stuff before you attack with it, or is this just vibes and experience?
It's more vibe and experience. I really rarely calculate anything.
That's amazing, dude. I love you. That's so fun.
I mean,
I'm the same way. I'm a vibes-based player, but
sometimes when I'm facing something I never do, I will maybe do some quick math, but most of the time it's really vibe and I need also sometimes you cannot afford to put more, right? You have to put that more and you cannot put more. So it's a bit dicey, but you have to go for, because especially when you're getting rush which is one of the weakness of Eldar, right? You're often getting rush as an Eldar player. So when you're getting rush, you have to make choice. You cannot just commit, you cannot just kill what your opponent is expecting you to kill, because then you will just lose. You need to try to create more play, etc. So it's really, I go on the edge in those, it's the moment where I go the most on the edge, and if it goes, it goes. Sometimes it will fail, but I have no choice.
So it kind of leads me to some good team play here questions. You said you're the high scorer for your team, and it certainly shows. I mean, you're the high scorer for the event, and your consistency at top level Warhammer tournaments is pretty amazing. The place pattern you're talking about, where you're taking these big risks to try to get these big points, kill stuff maximum efficiently instead of overkilling it, over-threatening your opponent to try to do more than they expected you to. All of that stuff typically comes with, not the safest lines of play, a bit more risk and potentially a lot of risk when you're playing Warhammer. How do you balance risking the game state, trying to get more points for your team, with the fact that if you flop and you end up losing this game because your risks went poorly, all of a sudden the 15 plus point score you were trying to bring in is now looking like a 6. How do you handle that big swing?
So I think one of the key part of pushing is really screening the backfield. And because you told me before, I have several layers in my game plan, right? So if my plan goes badly, it's my first layer that will suffer the most, and I will miss and lose a kind of bunch of stuff. But I will still have quite a few units in my second and third layout, and my backfield will be a screen and rock solid, right? They will know my opponent couldn't infiltrate it idly. So even if my kind of rush flop, I will still be able to either maybe push with my second layer just to screen and slow his advance because now he win, or move everything back and wait for him and like kind of still gather most of the point, and it will go on a draw generally, more than like a 5.
Right. Like if you're holding all the objectives in the space behind you, your opponent can't knock you off those objectives, and they're not scoring like big investigates or a big established locus behind enemy lines. All those points like are not accessible to them. So you're very defensively responsible is the idea.
Yeah. I think it's the important is to realize when it did go wrong, because sometimes it will be hard to catch, right? It will be small thing that actually didn't go in your way, and it will not necessarily the most logical or the most like cinematographic thing. Like for example, even if you manage to kill that 10-man possessed in the middle of the ring, maybe it's that fight with 5 legendary in the corner that went wrong that actually mean that no, you cannot rush.
How do you identify that? Like, obviously there's experience and reps, but like, what's your process if you could try to break it down?
I think you can generally divide the map in a bunch of different zones, right? There is like the middle, your deployment zone, the opponent deployment zone, and then kind of both corner. I'm mainly speaking for like Search and Destroy or like Crucible of Battle, kind of. It's a bit less true about Hammer and Anvil, but like, and like it's really about like winning those zones to win the game. And sometimes, for example, if your opponent just put 5 legendary on the side, you're going to try to match that with like 1 unit of your own, like for example, 1 unit of Troupe and 1 Troupe Master. And on the other side, for example, you may have like 2 boats, 10 Troupe, and then in front of you there is like 2 Rhino full of guys and 10 Chosen. But if those 5 Troupe lose against the 5 legendary on that other side, is actually as important as your whole army lose against like the whole army on the other side, right? Those little fights are actually sometimes more important, because it will mean that those 5 legendary will stay on that side, score that objective for the rest of the game, may do every action they need to go on that side, and it's actually a bunch of points. I think it's probably the way I would describe it, but I'm not that confident in to describe it, because it's mainly by playing it that you start to feel those things. But like, I think it's a good way to say it.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Basically, it's not even tied to like if the game of Warhammer is kind of divided into small battles around the table, which often happens when you're this fast and this skirmishy. It's not whether or not you win the main battle; it's whether you win the small battles around the sides that also impact the score, and you have to kind of identify, okay, I lost this one fight to a Legionnaire squad in your example. Now that means that my expansion objective is going to be lost for the next few turns. That's like 5 points a battle round. And then on top of that, it might make something like containment accessible to your opponent or established locus or whatever. So it's important to kind of recognize that not just the main conflict in the game is the only thing that matters. And I think your list, because it's so fast, can really fight on all these different places on the table really, really well. So how do you handle armies that are capable of catching you or keeping up with you? I'm talking about the very fast armies or armies that up and down 6 inch away, like Gene Stealer Cult or Grey Knights. Are those problematic matchups for you?
So there is, I think, at that moment when the army can match my speed, it's really important that I'm able to kill them. Because if I cannot kill them because they are resilient, they are really annoying, really strong, it will be a problem and it will be an annoying matchup. So army that like are really fast, like like Admech is kind of fast, GSC, like you told, are okay because I can kill them kind of easily because they are also made of paper, kind of. So even if they are as fast as me, I still have my tricks that still work against fast. So I can still like react move against like army that move. And against JSC, it's a lot of screening, and I have quite a few units able to screen, and I'm good at optimizing my screen, especially like I have those boats, so I can, because I don't really need to go to start or do anything to come back in my boat. I can just use the player to go out and screen rapiding, screen those stuff to like avoid them hitting me really hard still. And if they hit me, I will be able to kill them because they are not that hard to kill. So that's good. But against army that are fast and really durable, like for example, Emperor Children, stuff like that, those are matchups that are kind of bad for me. So what I will do is will just accept and play for a lose. And it's actually kind of harder to play against someone that just play to lose, right? Because like those players will maybe be expected to like, get a big win because on their matrix it's a good matchup.
Right.
So I will just block and refuse the game and wait for an opportunity. Maybe they overcommit slightly and I will be able to catch more points that I should, stuff like that. So, but yeah, the army that are really fast and kind of durable and can like kill me easily are like problematic matchup in general, I think.
That makes a lot of sense. And you kind of mentioned a little bit about how a problematic matchup that like Emperor's Children is so fast, they're durable and they catch you. So you would just play it as though you were going to lose and try to keep it as close as possible. In teams, that's a perfectly valid tactic. And also in teams, you can try not to just hit that pairing. Obviously, you've designed this list for teams, and that's kind of your main focus right now. But do you think this list could work in singles?
Overall, yes, because at the end of the day, like outside of Emperor Children, there is not like that many army that are either same fast as me and too durable for me to kill. So when I was doing my matrix, I had like some red matchup, but like one or two, and all the rest were either like playable, like on the draw or win. And I don't think in single right now there is an army that win everything automatically anyway. So yeah, I would still say that army is a pretty valid choice if you have the reps and if you know what you're doing with it. It's a valid choice, I think.
Right. I love it. Okay, cool. So you mentioned also the speed issue is kind of tied to durability, and that got me thinking that your army is notably not durable, right? Like it uses tricks to try to survive, like reactive moves and going into and out of the transports. But if you ever actually get hit, you're probably going down. So like, how do you manage with things like the Warlock Conclave and Eldrad and just Harlequin troops being like the backbone of your army? How do you survive taking a hit from your opponent?
So the thing is that my army is not durable, but it's also not made of paper. Like I still have 4 pinwall, so especially against like those high quality attack and stuff, I always have a save. So the idea is to always be able to hit first, because I can, with my positioning, with the tricks like I told and my speed, generally I will be able to hit first. And the trick is that with hitting first, it allows me to maybe kill the unit that is really efficient of killing me, maybe. And then I become a bit annoying to kill. Not like I will still die quickly, but like when you only have like big hammer attack or big attack against me, it becomes less efficient to me. Like, for example, in a marine army, one of the main important units to kill for me is a 5-man intercessor, because that army will kill me. But maybe if I let, I don't know, a tank alive, a vindicator, I don't really care. Stuff like that.
Right.
So it's really about that. So you're fast, I'm fast, so I will choose kind of my engagement, and I need to make sure I delete those units before like the grind starts, really.
Interesting. So is that because of the mission play aspect of it? You're trying to remove your opponent's small units. They have to use their big units inefficiently to do actions and stuff? Or is that because they're actually the threat intercessor specifically shoots so many shots?
Yeah, it's a bit of both, right? Like, for example, if I have to choose between killing a 5-man marine and a vindicator, damage-wise against me, it's exactly the same. The 5-man intercessor are so easier to kill, have more OC. So to me, they are a lot more valuable to kill. Even like you say, maybe he will have to do action and he don't want to do that with the Vindy, but I don't think even he should have done it with the intercessor either. He should have just go at me and kill me.
It makes a lot of sense. You're basically focusing on, everything is going to kill you functionally. You have a 4-up Indle, you're a 3-wound, you're a toughness 3 model with 1 wound. But the Vindicator pays a lot of points for its durability and the fact that it's strength 10 and damage D6 and whatever, versus the Intercessor is cheap and it has more OC. So it's actually much more rewarding to kill the Intercessor, and it's a lot easier to kill the Intercessor. And once you kind of reduce the game down to a bunch of vehicles, also your tactics like move blocking them and tagging them become a lot more viable. So I can totally see that. In a typical game, are you often getting tabled but winning anyway? Is that the vibe? Or are you actually getting through and killing your opponent and being the one left alive at the end?
So because I'm choosing my matchup in team, generally I'm alive and I'm winning the battle. But I could see myself in some game. I think right now to win a game of 40k, it's really hard to be like, table and still win, because points are kind of so easy to score if you're alive right now. But generally, a lot of my game we will pretty even in material kind of left, and like nothing left. It will be like a boat, a 5-man troop of player with a character, and maybe like a Warlock Skyrunner and another 5-man against like 2 Marine squad and maybe a tank, stuff like that.
Yeah.
We will pretty equal in material, and if we are equal in material, I'm actually winning because I'm faster, I have tricks.
Yeah, that makes sense too. And you have plenty of CP to redraw cards, like you had mentioned. So you're basically always at least giving yourself the best opportunity to score whatever you can, and it's hard for your opponent to keep up with. I know in general your damage kind of comes from everything adds up against the thing you need to kill in a very precise way. What kind of targets do you go for with like your 5-man troops and your troop master? Like a package like that without the Farseer Eldrad all-in buffs. What are you trying to hunt?
But like I told you, those 5-man intercessor, like stuff like that, like a 5-man troop. Yeah, like, exactly. Like stuff that I can kill, like because a 5-man player in combat alone will not kill 5 Marine, but if I can grenade and shoot, they can pretty much kill reliably 5 Marine without the help of a Farseer or Eldrad.
Right. Can they punch up, like if you're playing against vehicle heavy army and stuff like that, where there aren't 5 Marines?
They are pretty okay at killing vehicle because the +1 wound in melee. Like sometimes it's only 3 Meltagun, and like if 1 Meltagun goes through, suddenly they are killing a Rhino alone. Because like I'm grenade, Meltagun, and then I have to do like 2 to 3 wound in melee, which I can reliably do. Like players are really inconsistent. You cannot really, because it's depending of how many 5 and 6 you roll to wound in the end, because which is good, you're wounding everything in the game on 5 because you have +1 wounds, so that even like toughness 10 and like highest toughness, you're still doing quite a few damage against it, but you cannot really rely on it because it's so swingy. Like it's like you're rolling 25 dice with the player, hitting on 3, wounding on 5. That could be 5 wound to a vehicle sometime, or 2 or 1 even. Like it's really like go up and down. But also sometimes charging a vehicle is not too bad, because even if you don't kill it, you will auto say it, and if you put the Star Weaver next close enough, if he fall back, you can use the battle focus to go back in it. So like it's a fine strategy depending of the case.
That makes sense to me as well. So kind of a ability to punch up as necessary, but not really the prime target for all that. In the case of your troops, though, one thing I found super fascinating is your choice to go with the 5 attack weapon that is only strength 3 instead of the 4 attack weapon that's strength 4. Could you expound upon that a little bit?
I mean, it's basically the strength. I think I just run the math, and I think the strength 4 is just specifically better against like toughness 6 and 7, right? Mm-hmm. And against every other case, the strength 5 with more attack is the strength 3 with more attack is better. So I was there. Yeah, I think it's just better to have more versatility. And even on strength 5, 6, and 7, it's like a slight margin. Like so, it doesn't really, like for me. It just appeared as strength 3 with more attack were slightly better because they gained the AP in the new codex. They used to be AP 0, now they're AP 1, so they are strictly better.
Right. And you're wounding most things on 5s anyway. So it's really just whether the 4 goes to the strength 4 gets you to wounding on 4s, whereas the strength 3 gets you wounding on 5s. It's also more chances for devs, which is definitely helpful.
Exactly. So it's just, I think it's more efficient to choose that. It's not really like it's not really a tech. It's just pure math.
Yeah. So we talked about your secondaries a lot and how it's a big part of your game plan early. What about primary? Obviously, you have OC2 on all your troops and your Storm Guardians, but there's no durability there in terms of like just standing on a point in the open and surviving to your opponent's next turn. How do you actually hold and score primary?
So there is several things. So if the primary is the open, it's always a bit hard to hold. So I will not go on it because I don't want to let my opponent shoot me for free, right? So if the primary is in open, I will kind of play the deny point early, and then when I push, I will put stuff on objective, and my opponent will be too much like he will have to try to deal with a lot, so I will probably score some primary, because when I go out and I put 5 ranger on the middle objective, when all my army went into you, do you deal with those 5 rangers? Sometimes it's not clear. Also the fact that I can come back with character make that sometime a unit of troop with a character on an objective, mean that if I spend a CP, I will still have that objective. So like against like open objective, I will just play the tempo and like be happy on turn 1 and 2. I score 5, my opponent does as well. And then when I put the gas on turn 3, 4, I will maybe score some primary. And then in late game, again, I will still have like quite a few primary. Like, for example, Storm Guardian, if they go out the turn I'm putting the gas on, they will probably survive with a couple of model because that unit is actually pretty resilient for the cost.
Yeah.
And then they will like sticky that objective because if they survive on it, they are sticky. And then my opponent will have to reach that objective to deny it. So like all of that make it a bit, make that the primary game is generally okay. Like I will not hold objectives like, oh, I put something durable, you have to commit. I will not hold it and wait kind of my opponent to either put stuff, etc. Against objectives that are close, I can really use the react move efficiently to like either like I have a boat near a troop and then I put a troop so there is a lot of OC. And then my opponent, if he commits something big, I'm like reactive moving back in the boat, and if he commits something small, probably I would have let the Solitaire around so he can heroic and maybe like at least like threatening to kill maybe not the whole squad, but maybe like if 5 scouts are charging me, he will probably kill 3 scouts or something like that, and suddenly my troop can survive with -1 hit. I can also use the stage in my advantage because the Harlequin have the rules to move to ignore vertical distance. So like if there is like huge 9-inch ruin in WTC where there is 2 stages and the last stage is 6 inches up, there is quite a few army that if I react move on top of those, they can suddenly not charge me. Stuff like that.
Let's talk about that a little bit. That's a nuance that's not particularly common in America, but I think it makes a great deal of difference in your play at WTC. I know you ignore the vertical distance on the Harlequin troop. So how exactly are you using that?
So basically, it allows me to do a couple of things. First, I can use it defensively, like I told you, react move on top of objective and then suddenly be unchargeable for like vehicle or like, because the side of the stage are like 32 millimeters, so anything with a 40 millimeter base cannot go on top, and so I'm technically unchargeable for some unit in the game. So I can use that defensively, which is kind of a bit of a rule abuse, but it's kind of nice. And then in other thing, I can also use it to stage more efficiently, because now I can stage on top of the building without making me lose movement. And then my opponent will like reach me harder because suddenly I'm 3 inches tops, 6 inches up. So to charge me, even if he's on 32 millimeter base, he has to like go up from 3 inches, so it might mean that he actually cannot do the charge or stuff like that. And also, even if he managed to succeed the charge, it probably means that there is not that many models that will fight me, because only the model directly under me on the second stage will be able to fight. So that maybe mean that there is only like, 2 people that fight me, and I can take -1 wound and kind of survive because I still have a -1 hit, and I'm surviving on top. So that's like 2 of the main thing I'm using. Like the best use I think is for the Solitaire. He will generally go and stage on top on the ring in the middle of the map, hiding from shooting. If you charge me, I can fight first. Even if you kill me, I can reanimate him. So it makes him, and then from there he can reach anything on the board because he has the split, the blitz ability to move 12 plus 2d6 or even 14 plus 2d6, and then go into the backline, for example.
Yeah, beautiful. So you're basically actually leveraging the super tall ruins in WTC to real advantage because you ignore the vertical distance and your opponent doesn't. Very good for a defensive stage position since it's so hard to interact with. And that segues me beautifully to the Solitaire, which is going to be one of my last questions here. What is this guy doing? He's so cool. He's so awesome. But how are you using him?
So basically his role is to create chaos in the backline of my opponent. So the idea is that once per game, he can be super, super fast, where my army is fast, but will, like from my DZ, I cannot reach my opponent DZ, right? So, but with the Solitaire, I can actually do. So it will help me either against army that push me really hard, like those bad matchups we were talking earlier, like Emperor Children, stuff like that. I can infiltrate the Solitaire in the backline and it score me a lot of points because he can like be in the backline. He will not kill 5 marine, but generally I will use like the indirect of the Reaper to try to kill one Marine with all of that, and like, you know, start from turn 1, like anticipate that on turn 2 or 3 I might need the Solitaire to go kill those 5 Marine. So I will try to chip the wound on those Marine down, sorry. And then the tour he goes, poof, he takes the backline, and then suddenly he's pretty annoying to deal because he fight first and he can revive.
Right.
I always use it as a kill a side unit that is not dangerous because it's really unreliable, and the worst thing you can do is charge something and die during your turn. So I really try to charge, like I learned that by playing it, like charge a unit on the side, make sure like even if you miss, suddenly like if he fall back, you can react, move away, stuff like that, be annoying. It's really like, he's really annoying. And the other part, early game, I can use it as a kind of a defensor, like heroic plus fight first. Again, it's not really a threat, like, because if I was playing against it, I know that some unit can just ignore it because it doesn't do damage actually. But it's still threatening for my opponent to go into me with those 5 men, scouts, all of that are actually deadly to me because I'm a health.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And it sounds like a beautiful use for the Solitaire, just like totally wreaking havoc in the backfield, being very careful and precise with what fights you're picking and choosing. How do you determine who gets your strat, right? Like the reactive move, you have like 4 or 5 units that want to use it, and then you have basically all of your strats have a lot of competition for usage. How do you determine when is the right time?
So the one thing is the react move only applies to the Troupe anyway, so I cannot use it on the Solitaire. So I think the best way to use the react move is to not use it. Like when my opponent starts to play around, I'm happy, right? Because I don't need to spend the CP to do it. And often, even at high level, it's what it will happen is I will try to put not too many situations where it's big, like only one, maybe a second one. And then he will try to play around, and it will actually give me some advantage without using it.
Right.
But so like, I think the mistake to do is to react move on the first movement my opponent does. Like I want my opponent to, when he moves, he has to think about it. It has to change his movement maybe. So like, unless it's really really clear, sorry, it's the important thing to do, I will not react move if my opponent moves within 9 of me. Like, for example, if he moves a Rhino within 9, okay, I'm not going to react move. When he commits, obviously, a big unit, I might like take a time on my clock and think a bit if it's a good opportunity or not. But I think you get the most value of the strat by not using it, if you see what I mean.
I do see what you mean. I think that's a really unique take on it, but I don't even disagree, right? Like if you use the reactive move early and like one of the first moves, you get an opportunity to use it, even if you do something cool with it. Now I don't have to think about it. I can just play my game normally. Whereas if you just keep holding that reactive move over my head like basically a weapon you can use as soon as I fall into it on a worthwhile opportunity, I'm not going to try to give that to you. So it's I'm just inconveniencing myself over and over and over trying to plan around it. And then you don't even get to use it, which sounds bad, but you end up having a CP left over and my turn has been pretty inconvenienced. I think that's a great way to describe it.
Yeah. Because especially a combo that is really nice with the react move is that you also have that strat to charge your opponent during your phase. So that he has to be within 6. But actually, because you react move, he has to be within outside of 9, because if he goes within 9, you can react move within 6. You can also use it a bit aggressively to go within 6 of something to then be able to charge it. So that's like even more headache for my opponent. And then also, if you are within 10, you have to not shoot me, because suddenly if you shoot me, I can react move and charge you. So all of that make sometimes my opponent has to think, and he choose, like he basically think he need to not kill me, or like maybe diminish the output he put into me, where in my opinion the good solution is always just to try to kill me.
Yeah, that would be your take. Absolutely. I mean, it speaks to exactly how you play Warhammer, which I love. Okay, so Liam, I'm very excited to talk to you about your actual games played. I feel like I got a good grasp on this list here. I have a couple more questions before we head off to part 2, though. One more is about your list and how it operates. What is this large troop unit doing, and with a Shadowseer? Like, how do you use that thing?
So that unit has been there because first it helped me dealing with some of the horde. Because, like, I mean, one of my mates were playing like 20 men or Magont, all those like little horde unit, like, GSE that are playing like Host of Ascension, that unit can go and clap it, and that's like, I don't need to worry about it. So that's useful.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, the Harlequin have a stratagem to up it down, which is actually pretty nice on the Shadowseer unit because it's lone up 18. So sometimes I can up it down back into reserve and wait until like turn 4 maybe to have a good opportunity to go on a place and switch a side of the board if I don't need it.
That's cool.
Or even like I can rapid ingress like defensively. If I see I'm getting pushed on one side, I can say, okay, I'm can rapid ingress there. And then a last use of it is basically, it's like kind of slowing my opponent down on the side. Because, for example, it's still an 11-man player that can be -1 hit. So like some unit that cannot fall back or shoot, but fight hard in melee, fall back and charge and fight hard in melee, will not maybe kill it. So I can, for example, charge 10 possessed on a site, kill a couple. It will not kill a lot of possessed. It will kill like maybe 3 possessed. Yeah. And then maybe I'm on the side and only like 5 possessed can kill me and I'm -1 to hit. And then he fight me, doesn't kill me fully. Then he has to roll some hazardous, lose a couple of model and stuff like that. It's kind of that unit I can try a push in the middle of the table and I'm like, it dies, but it's forced for my opponent to commit something really big. Because like, for example, you can commit like half of a 5-man GPI into it, but you will only probably kill half of the unit. And then I will get those 5 GPI and still have a unit alive with all the Melta alive, which is the main damage output of that unit. So I will be happy to trade half of my unit for one of your units. So if you want to kill it fully as a Blood Angel unit, you need to commit a full 6-man Dante. And if you commit Dante to that, I'm super happy to take that trade. Is that unit that can stage in place where it's gonna get charged and still gonna survive, kind of, because it's relatively tough. And also the Hazardous is always a bit of a deck for my opponent because, like, you never know what's happened, right? Like that 10-man chosen in Bile, for example, it's really hard to kill, but if it charges it, then okay, it's gonna kill my unit, but suddenly you're like 4 Hazardous or like 3 Hazardous on 10 dice, on 12 dice, which is totally possible. But it's a lot easy to kill for me later.
Makes sense. So it's all just part of that toolbox approach to Warhammer. Just figure out the usage in the moment, and it's a lot of chip damage in the right spots. It's a different type of tool because it's like 50 attacks, and it's got, of course, a little bit more durability, so you can tie people up with it. I love it. It's a very, very utilitarian. Okay, Liam, last question before we head off to part 2. If you had a piece of advice you could give to an aspiring Warhammer player, what would it be?
I think it would be just to play the game a lot, I guess. It's my approach to the game generally. Just play a bunch of game and talk about 40k, I guess, with your friend, and you will develop, I guess, a strong sense for the game.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm sure the listeners are going to love this one. This was a super highly requested episode, so I thank you again for coming on the show and doing it.
Thank you to have me.
Of course. Listeners, thank you so much for listening. We cannot do the show without you. You literally keep the lights on, and we love being up the 40k content flow for you. If you're interested in part 2 and you're interested in supporting the show, please check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/AOW40k. That's where we do all the different part 2s. You get access to this episode along with 280 plus other part 2 episodes. So there's like a mountain of Warhammer content you get access to, and you get access to our amazing Discord server where you can talk to all the different Arctic war coaches and even Liam VSL himself, ask him questions about his army list and how it all operates. You can subscribe on patreon.com/AOW40k. We'd love to see you there. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Like what you just listened to? Check out Art of War Down Under and Art of War Unbroken on the competitive 40k network. theartofwar40k.com.